watching Republic.
Thank you for joining us on this special broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, for 36 days now, we've been looking at the pictures come into our newsrooms from the Gulf nations. What do we make of this war and the way it's gone in the last 36 days? Shravan and me, in the course of the next 1 hour, will try and make sense of where we are tonight, 36 days in, as America and Israel, Shravan, would you say, are suffering dramatic military setbacks?
Well, in fact, Niranjan, this week perhaps there was a moment in the newsroom when we were essentially discussing that is there a possibility that President Trump, when he addresses America, is going to basically call an end to the war?
Yes.
And it was a damn squib. What we saw the next day was a repeat of what he has been saying all this while, that, you know, the entire military capability of Iran has been completely decimated, and the fantastic response that is coming from the Iranians, where they say that, you know, when the missile strikes are happening, these are strikes from Mars that's happening. So, that, you know, the war has stayed. There has been a turning point in the war. It's just in the last 24 hours itself, there's been a massive turning point. I guess what the focus would essentially be right now is that is America still looking for an off-ramp? What's the win that they're going to have right now? Because for them, it's quite clear there is an element of desperation.
That's correct. Most people ask just one question. Is the war ending? If yes, when is it ending? So we are not experts, but we do have experts in our panel. Today, this evening, we have Mr. Mahesh Sachdev, a former diplomat. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava, former Air Force officer, joining us on the broadcast tonight. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Former Air Army officer, ex-DG Infantry, and ex-COS Eastern Command and 14 Corps, and Captain Shyam Kumar, a former naval officer, joining us, all experts in their own field. And we've got experts from different fields so that they help us make sense of the war. Let's start with the defining images, Shravan, of the last 24 hours. We've seen some dramatic setbacks for the US. When the first pictures came into our newsrooms of an F-15, we were told initially it was an F-35 and its pilot was captured. Initially, we found out that it could have been an F-15 and not an F-35. One pilot captured and one pilot has been rescued. We haven't seen pictures of the captured pilot, but we know that one is missing in action. And then you had the choppers that went in, you had the Hercules that went in flying low, and you had Iranians, tribals, nomads firing at these birds in the skies, and you wonder where the war is going. And add to that the pictures from different bases of Chinooks, refuelers, and these very big prized American planes getting hit by Iranian missile. This is no advertisement for America. Shravan.
Well, in fact, let's make no mistake, and perhaps Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava would take this forward. Iran basically shooting down 2 of US military aircraft is an exceedingly rare assault on the United States of America right now. In the last 20 years, we have not seen that really happening. For America, as Niranjan rightly pointed out, it's not the right kind of an advertisement to begin with. We're talking about a F-15E, which is the Strike Eagle aircraft, initially priced at about $31 million, now up to $100 million. So it's not certainly something that is cheap. As I understand from multiple reports, it's a shoulder-fired missile that must have brought it down. But having said that, the focus of our entire conversation right now, Air Vice Marshal Srivastava, is the military losses that America has faced versus what we have been talking about is the asymmetric warfare. I'll come to the asymmetric warfare in a while from now. Your reading of the current situation in terms of losses that America has seen.
So you asked a very good question. If you really take about the losses, and I got the list of them, they already have lost, I'm not saying how, 6 KC-135, 12 MQ-9B Reaper kind of drones, which is as costly as an aircraft. Then 3 F-15 friendly fire, Strike Eagle, and 1 F-35 which are damaged. It was damaged by the Iranian missile hit or something, not known and not accepted by the US. And one A-10 aircraft,
Right.
which is supposed to be flying machine gun. And one F-15 Strike Eagle, of course, which has now become very prominently visible. It was either shot down, it malfunctioned. In aviation, there are many, many things which can happen, and it dropped down. But of course, in Iranian territory, there is one F-15 Strike Eagle, and 2 pilots ejected. One was rescued out, and one is still unknown, and that has been accepted by the US media also. So Black Hawk helicopter has also come down.
Right.
They were also able to hit one Chinook in Kuwait. So if you see these losses are phenomenal losses if you face an enemy like Iran, where President Trump himself says that they have no Air Force left, they have no Navy left, they have no air defense left.
So how does this really work? We're talking about advanced fighter jets being brought down, and some are
Let's get some reality check.
Yeah. How is that possible?
Yeah, that reality check. Let's do some reality check. Have they really decimated all the launchers? If you really ask, and even go by the intelligence report which is circulating in American media, they have not been able to decimate. There's still 50% launchers available because they're underneath the mountains,
Right.
and they're mobile. So these two factors, when you combine, it's not possible in such a large country, which is half the size of India,
Yeah.
to really take care of all the launchers. And they have been plenty. They knew. They were preparing for this kind of assault for several decades. It's not that today they prepared. Now let's take a number of missiles. What is their strategy? It's an asymmetric warfare. They're not hitting the the offensive targets who are coming to offend them. They're hitting in somewhere where they can hit. So in their range is GCC countries. They know the center of economic gravity, and if they disturb that and disturb the oil through the Strait of Hormuz, they have grip over the global economy.
Right.
They're using that moment to assert their power. It's an asymmetric power. Then they have drones. And drones in such numbers, by last count, their production capacity per month was 10,000 drones per month.
Per month.
It's a huge thing. So, and besides, they say they have in plenty. And as per last report, what we had, they had around 3,000 or some. They are not spending as much. And they started spending from the missiles which are life expired. So this asymmetric warfare is here to stay. They have shown this to the world. And second thing, it's a David and Goliath kind of story. So what happened? They are not aggressor at this moment. So they are on a higher pedestal. Even the constituency of Mr. President Trump doesn't know why are you fighting this war.
Yeah.
He tried to explain that.
The objectives have been changing.
Changing. So they don't know. So we say always, all of us here, veterans are here, we say selection of aim and maintenance of aim through the conflict is the first principle of war.
Yeah, so can I take that question to Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni? Looking at the losses, sir, I know that you have views on this war and the actors in the war. But even by American standards, this is a loss of face. Now, is it about the strategy or the ever-changing strategy, or the fact that they went in perhaps without taking everybody, on board?
Thank you very much. The Americans are professionals. First, we must accept that and go along with it, that yes, they know, they understand where they're going in for. They've been observing the Iranians since 1979, so for the last 47 years, the Iranians are under sanctions from America. There have been targeted assassinations of the Iranians, again committed by the Americans. So they know exactly the inputs from within Iran coming to them. They are also keeping a watch as to how much with the sanctions has Iran progressed. They are also concerned with the Iranians having developed proxies in Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis. They know what the Hamas has done in Gaza by having constructed 400 kilometers of tunneling within Gaza. So the ability to be able to have their proxies and ensuring, and all along maintaining one, death to Israel and death to America. That means the enmity of Iran with the Americans and the Israelis is well known. There is nothing that is being hidden. In that context, if the Americans felt that they could do what they wanted to do, they have failed miserably. Why they have failed miserably is because they never expected that the Iranians, irrespective of what and how they would retaliate,
Yes.
they would be able to withstand such a long, because the military might of America and the military might of Israel being taken on by Iran, and then be able to stand now the 36th day is indicative that the more they pound Iran, the more Iran seems to be rising
Yes.
high in morale. And once that morale is so sky high of the Iranians, it's extremely, extremely difficult then to be able to subjugate with just pounding the Iranians. Yes, Iranians have suffered. Iranians are suffering. Iranians have been able to take that destruction. To a large extent, yes, leadership decimated.
Yeah.
To a large extent, you can say the air supremacy now that they always maintain, and yet maybe a little complacency by the Americans at this point.
A little, sir?
A complacency by the
A little, sir?
General Kulkarni, when you started by saying that, they're professionals, I just want to, perhaps put the spotlight on what really happened. The purge within Pentagon. The chief of army staff is basically asked to resign in the middle of a war. How professional is that? And, had this happened anywhere else, in any part of the world, God help you, you would have gone hammer and tongs by saying that there's something really terribly wrong, with the administration itself. The Americans can brazen it out. They feel that they can brazen it out by doing anything that they like.
I agree with you on this issue. America is a democracy. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the GCC countries that we talk about, because of the oil that the Americans were controlling over there in the Middle East, all of these countries had outsourced the security to the Americans. And they expected that security because that security got them investments. And those investments brought them richness. And that is what they were now looking at. And that, if had been given to the Chief of the Army Staff, that it is your duty to ensure that our bases in GCC countries have not to be, when you are a military might, when you have all at your disposal, if you cannot maintain it, then somebody will buy.
Yeah.
Now, there could be other thing to it, saying that, look, it is not this, something else, that he was probably not towing the line of Hexen.
Of course,
he got sacked.
Of course. Won't you agree, Niranjan, that perhaps this time Americans have been exposed to a greater extent? The fact of the matter is that how long will you keep telling that this is how the world is going to run, number one. Number two, look at what has essentially happened within the administration itself. And then Niranjan, you can take that forward. Meanwhile, I'll just quickly move to the wall and perhaps take everyone through what are the key highlights of this week in terms of the losses that we're talking about.
Yeah, I'll join you there, Shravan. But while I join you there, let me put this question to Captain.
Yes.
Question to you, sir. How many times have you heard Donald Trump tell India, okay, India and Pakistan had a conflict. They lost 4 planes, 5 planes, 6 planes, 7 planes, 8 planes. Can we, you know how many planes they have lost? I mean, look at it, the irony of it. Shravan, if you want, let's start. Let's look at the military losses in the last few days. Shravan.
So you're looking about 13 combatants that have been killed in terms of
officially.
Officially,
Would that number be bigger?
See, let's be very clear. Pentagon has done everything to hide the numbers. Let's be very clear about the fact that we still did not know. All that they have been extremely clear about the number of targets that they have hit. They say 12,300 targets have been hit in Iran.
Yes.
They say that. But are they also being equally open about what are their losses? Now, this is an estimate coming in from various sources. 247 US troops reportedly injured. Now, this is what Western media has been talking.
Some American media also puts that number at 700 injured or killed. Now, we don't know. But sure, go ahead.
So, US military depot. Now, this is what, in terms of the military bases, particularly in the GCC countries that have been targeted. In fact, in Kuwait, when it comes to UAE, as well as in Saudi Arabia, there are some of those who have taken a massive hit.
This is the number of missiles that have been fired.
Missiles fired. I think so. You've worked you've done a lot of research on Tomahawk.
The irony is of all these missiles that have been fired. Some countries that had pending orders with America, countries like Switzerland and some European countries, they now suddenly realize that those Tomahawks that they'd ordered are either not coming or are indefinitely delayed, because by some reports, it's going to take at least 5 years to replenish the stocks, and they don't have enough stocks. Let's go through some of the other numbers. Let's continue. Okay.
Now, this is their prized possession. US's F-35A has been touted as a stealth frigate and has been sold to many other countries, United Kingdom being one such. It's a fifth-generation multi-role stealth fighter, US Air Force's primary strike jet. Its flyaway cost is about $82 million, but it's much more than that. It goes up to about $100 million. But this has also taken a hit. Now, one cannot really explain under what condition did the F-35 really take that hit, because that perhaps Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava is in a better position to explain it to us, because no one would have really thought that this stealth fighter jet can actually take the kind of hit it has. At least from the images that you see,
yes,
it's very different. Let's move on.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
It's the US A-10 Warthog aircraft which has been downed. It's a close air support to ground troops, optimized for low altitude operations, cost about $18 million. And in terms of their capability, in fact, it's one of the kind aircraft which has been downed. And the fact of the matter is that the kind of operations that it does in terms of low altitude operations, it is well equipped.
The irony is we just saw pictures of these planes taking off from a base in UK.
Yeah.
And the next day we heard of these planes being downed. Let's go to the next military losses. The KC-135, this is the most visual image that we had of them being hit in Saudi. It's a refueler, high-value asset. It's a fuel transfer load. It's got a fuel transfer load of about 90,000 kilograms and costs approximately $70 million. I think we've been a little conservative. It can go up to about $300 million.
In fact, the defining image that, as you pointed out, was this was downed, if I'm not wrong, in Iraq.
Yes.
And if you look at those images closely, it seems that Iranian proxies who carried out this attack has done it with the help of shoulder-fired missiles. Now, these are not, in terms of cost, if you really look at it, there is hardly any cost to those missiles bringing down an aircraft of this nature, which is the reason why we've been saying Iranians have actually been ahead in the war at a very low cost.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next military visual loss we've seen in the last few days. F-15E Strike Eagle shot down. One of the first losses that this jet has had in combat. Flyaway cost of approximately $65 million goes
this
up to
has gone up way much, because when it was first introduced by the Americans, it was roughly about $31 million. Now it is up to about $100 billion. With the kind of advanced technology that has been brought into the system, it has gone way higher than what it is right now. In fact, Niranjan, Iranian state television has actually put out images of this particular F-15 Strike Eagle. These are pictures that were put out by the Iranian television. It shows the remnants of the fighter jet. Now, as far as the pilots are concerned, that we are not very sure, because it's also about claim versus counterclaim right now.
You want to take that question? Captain Sharma wanted to come in. Sir, of all the losses that we've seen, if you want to make a last point, and then we'll go to the next theme.
Yeah, as far as the pilots are concerned, as a pilot, an aircraft carrier pilot, I would like to tell you, and the Trump said so today, there is a war-vested reserve table that we make on the first day of war, and then we have everyday losses. And we know that today if I have 100 aircraft, tomorrow there will be 80. Right. We go like that. Even 10%, 20% wastages we calculate. In best of the air defense system or the worst of the system, Iran has enough, so they will be hit. Whichever aircraft you talk about, whether it is 15 or 35 or anyone. Could be emergency, could be mechanical failure, could be splinters hit, which happened in F-35, which landed in Middle East, the first one.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, so that when the aircraft carrier pilot takes off, he's saluted by the crew, and he salutes the deck, and he says he may not come back. And similarly, he said today that we are at war. So when you are at war, you have a war vested reserve table, you prepare it and you go for it. It's a risky operation. I wanted to make a point about the Army Chief resignation, if I may.
Yes.
Let me tell you 1 minute extra on this. See, when Afghanistan, they withdrew the forces, the Americans decided that hereafter we will never go for a ground insurgencies operation or ground-based operation, stationary requirements, where we lose we put boots on ground and we get body bags. So they said we will go mission deployment and we will only engage people and disengage. That's what Biden did it, and he brought Lloyd Austin as defense secretary for the last 4 years. This officer was a CENTCOM army general. earlier in 2013 and 16, and he had worked on it. They prepared America accordingly for last 4 years.
Right.
And on the platter, Trump has been given a platform. And that's why I started with my intent saying that he's towing the lines of American people. Now, what is the problem? Problem is now the previous defense secretary, now Hexet, he's got Mr. General Christopher, who has been brought as new general. Now, there is Admiral Cooper, who is CENTCOM commander today. People will remember him tomorrow because he's actually fighting the war, not Trump. He's the first admiral who has been brought as CENTCOM commander after 2007 and 8, when Admiral Fallon resigned because he was pro-Iranian in the sense of no dent, only intent. And from 1983, there have been always army officers there. There is a maritime engagement shift in last 4 years in American policy. And therefore, they will never stay there. They will do the mission and get back. And that is why you are finding all the people who are not in this alignment, including the previous general, who is an infantry officer. The Christopher is a 82 Airborne Brigade commander, the brigade which is going on there now.
Right.
And the Admiral Cooper has been Marine Forces specialist for 4 years, from 21 to 25, and he was CENTCOM naval commander before he took over as Admiral of the CENT commander. One more thing, Israel was in EUCOM. He has been brought on CENTCOM from the last 3 years. All the 7 Middle East countries have been engaged maritime-wise, and they have done a lot of preparation for last 4 years. Actually, eyes are, you said, aims were clear. They wanted to annihilate and make a ground so that Strait of Hormuz is functionally taken over later. That he did not decide in the beginning. He said rogue state, missile annihilation or uranium annihilation. But actually the mudda was this, and that is how the war is going on. People have to wait. It's a maritime engagement, and some mobile forces are coming up. Lot of annihilation is required. The ground is not yet ready. That is why dilemma, deception, surprise, and this kind of facts, that's what he's saying.
Yeah. So if I can take a question with Mr. Sachdev, how much is too much for the Gulf nations, sir? If they're all absorbing the hits, and they are being hit, their energy sites are being hit, their military sites are being hit. US bases, of course, will be hit because Iran is going after them. But they all are perhaps at a break point now. Some countries are taking a stand on whether the war is at a point where you can't really sustain it. Some are being put under pressure to review their relationship with the US. But how long do you think they will sustain it? As a diplomat, how do you see them respond to the way America has gone about this war, sir?
Good question. I think the answer may surprise you. I think as far as my knowledge of GCC countries is concerned, their defense capabilities may be top-heavy, technology-heavy, but the manpower has not fought a war for quite some time.
Yeah.
If you don't count the Yemeni incursions, where UAE was the only country that had ground troops. They also have to worry about fragility of their political systems. Unlike Iran, they don't have that kind of staying power.
Yes.
Thirdly, issue of minorities. All of them, barring Bahrain, have Shia minorities whose loyalties are suspect. These are tribal rulers, and there are other tribes who have claim to the throne. Bahrain actually has Shia majority. So it's a reverse situation there. And it's being ruled by a Sunni royal family. So all that put together, and having had a compact for 8 decades with the United States, since the Second World War, when President FDR, in the dying days, on Valentine's Day 1945, met with Saudi king and arrived at a compact called Oil for Security. They have surrogated their security to United States.
Yes.
In mid-80s, after Iranian Revolution came, Americans found it a bit inconvenient So Pakistanis were subcontracted securities of Saudi Arabia and many other Gulf states. So all that put together makes them wary of taking on Iran directly,
Yes.
confrontationally.
Yes.
So it's more like, Niranjan, like in a school, in a classroom, and you have the naughty boys there. The Gulf countries are pretty much like that, because what is happening is that you're egging the Americans. You're saying that go fight for us, but I'm not going to be part of it. Because all reports essentially suggest that Saudi Arabia has been egging President Trump to go for it.
Yes.
And now things are a little different there, because having said that, you're right, Ambassador, that they do not have, perhaps they're not in a position to take them head on. They realize that Iran is going to be there with them. You have to deal with them. A weakened Iran is something that they would want that to happen. And things, how it really changes, let's...
Allow me to flag the dilemma that they face. On one hand, they're unhappy with Americans and Israelis,
Right.
having started all this without consulting them. They're getting all the collateral damage they didn't deserve, had anything to do with it. As they see it, of course, it's a bit of a sophistry. We know American planes, Air Force planes are there. We know bases are there. And Iranians do have some sort of legitimacy in attacking those assets. On the other hand, Americans would like to let it be known publicly that Saudi Arabia's crown prince wants them to finish Iran,
Right.
which will once again be an anathema. If it comes out and Iran is not finished, then what happens to the Saudi royal family and Iran? They have had difficult relationship with Iran, Shia-Sunni divide, regional geopolitics, burning of Saudi embassy in 2014, Beijing's intervention to set their relations right, and 3 years on, they're back where they started.
Right.
So all that put together, they are the horns of a dilemma. And we have Iran acting in a bit of blow hot, blow cold manner. President Pezeshkian would apologize to the GCC countries
But
for
very next
hitting
moment
them.
you get hit.
Then you have IRGC, who are hardlined. So they deserve this. They are in a way reflecting what President Trump has been doing all this while, blow hot and blow cold.
Right.
Now, allow me to bring in two factors which are almost never mentioned in an area. One, Iranians have a martyrdom complex. Shia
Right.
sort of mythology is talked about shahadat. They've been done in by Sunnis. Their Ithnasharis, or 12 great gurus of sort, many of them were done in deceitfully by Sunni leaderships. Then there's second issue of what is called mutazaidat. Mutazaidat literally in English would mean overbidding. Iranians could never allow the other side in commercial negotiations or in a war to have the last word.
Right.
They were to have ziyada. They were to have the last word. And that's what is happening. I rest my case.
Yeah. Okay, so should we go to the next theme? Okay, let's move on to the next theme now. Where do we start, Shawan?
So let's also look
troop
at
deployment. You
the
wanna talk
troop
about the troop
deployment, because that's going to be the next key feature. And Marshal Srivastava, if I am to go with all the indications that have come in, and with the resignation, let's put that, the jigsaw puzzle, join the dots here. It does seem that for President Trump, for what he said just about a few days ago, a desperate need for a win, and a win can only happen, or a presumption of a win can only happen when there is a kind of a ground invasion. It could be a short one, it could be an in and out, but it would come with its own baggages. But having said that, with the total amount of deployment that has taken place, are we really moving towards that, a ground invasion being inevitable?
Shravan, will you allow me 2 minutes to build the context? I'll start from the President Trump's address to nation.
Right.
And I just noticed 2 things very clearly, which has not been in media so much been talked about. First was he quoted World War I, how long it went on. World War II, how long it went on. Vietnam, how long it went on. So he said the wars go on for a very long time. That is one. Second, when he signed off, he used some sentence which hit me. He said, God bless America and God bless our ground forces. So that means there was a clear indication that firstly, he knows that he is in an escalation trap, not escalation ladder. Ladder is chosen one which is already pre-proposed, pre-planned.
Why do you say it's a trap?
Trap. Because Robert Pape, Professor Robert Pape.
Yes, he was live on
Chicago
Republic, yeah.
University, he's worked on this concept for a very, very long time. And he was also advisor to White House in first term of President Trump. So he coined the phrase, the escalation trap. What he says there, he says that step 1, you have certain objectives, you do air bombing, and those objectives are achieved. In this case, the same thing happened. Right. The leadership was eliminated, and they have by now hit nearly 20,000 targets, US and Israel combined.
Right.
So that means by now you would have taken off anything of substance which can take off, because that would be a very, very, as General says, very thoughtful exercise from a mighty, power, armed forces power of United States of America. So one would think there's nothing worthwhile which can really retaliate, or which can really fire back, except what Ambassador has said, that they got 2 elements within themselves. We also understand those 2 elements are very important, that they will not lose till the time they win. Since they can't win, they will not lose. So now coming to assets which are being brought over there. There have been a lot of talk about marine expeditionary units coming over there. Just for the sake of audience, since people are watching it, the expeditionary unit, then there's a brigade, then there's an expeditionary force. Normally, they are not occupational forces. They are assigned a particular thing. They come through all 3 vectors, sea vector, air vector, and the ground vector, and they go for a particular purpose. Right. They assign everything. There'll be a very awe and shock kind of movement when they attack. And by then, the people go over there. And I will not talk about beachheads and all that, how the distances are there. A lot of people have calculated that.
The shock element is gone?
The shock element, when they come for that. But if you really ask me, the number of troops they have amassed is not proportionate to the level at which you need troops number. Okay. So maybe they are trying to all this is a kind of filling up the fear psychosis in the mind of Iranians, which is not going to come.
So you're not too convinced that there could be a ground invasion?
They will be, because he's in an escalation trap. Okay. But he's not amassing as much of troops level as he needs to be successful. Even if you take Normandy landings of World War II, which we often quote, the blood cost of the warfare. America has technology, has weapons, has everything, precision-guided things, unmanned. But are they willing to pay the blood cost of the warfare? So that's where there's a lack. And that lack is so important that if body bags start going, which will start going, whatever way you attack it, because the way terrain is, the way they'll land over there, the way the exposures will happen, there'll be a cost to it. And you've seen there's a cost to it.
Right.
That cost you should be willing to pay. And that's what some of our panelists are telling, that they are ready. If they are ready, politically, Trump is not ready to pay that cost.
Is that many experts feel, sir, and I'll come to Ambassador after that. Many feel that this week, if attacks on energy sites sustain, oil could reach $200 a barrel.
Yes.
Now, that is a problem. So, and because we were speaking about impact of the war, this is something that's affecting all of us. Now, the way both sides are going at each other. Do you see the attacks on energy side sustain? And if yes, do you see this situation of oil prices escalate? I mean, of course, it'll be a fallout, but do you see the energy sides being hit?
See, the Americans have been wanting to ensure that they don't strike the energy part for Iran because their eyes in the oil. The Israelis don't care for it because Israelis want to strike because they want to push the Iranians another 50 years behind, so they are not an existential threat to Israel. So there are two different distinct aims. As regards what the Americans are concerned is if they were to take on the oil infrastructure. Now, for Americans to be able to make ground to have boots on ground, that means they have to soften their targets. For the last 36 days, the Americans have been able to identify that is that possible. Is softening of target before they land their troops, which are not in large numbers. They just have about 50-odd thousand in the Middle East. They have yet another about 10,000 of these elite forces backing them up. So that's a very limited number from the point of view being able. But should they able to succeed in softening of the target, for in the last 36 days, the amount of degradation of Iran that they have been able to do, but not bring down the morale. And that morale is a major factor which the Americans seem to feel is a hindrance for having the boots on ground. If that be so, then there's a real issue for the Americans at this point of time. They wouldn't. Now, how long? Now, there is something that comes the Iranian way for able to have an actionable intelligence by which they're able to target Israel, they're able to target the GCC countries. If they're able to target, there are countries which are giving them that actionable intelligence. And that they also have what are called the men, all the air defense, that is the pad. That means they are all shoulder-fired missiles, which the Iranians still have, and the ability to be able to take on 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers. So that is their ability still there. They may have degraded the other capabilities, but they would not. 100% degradation is not possible. Even now you may have an Iron Dome, you can have arrow, you can have slings, whatever.
Is the Iron Dome working anymore? We don't see any interceptions at all these days.
What happens with interceptions is any interceptions, any of these things will take on 94%, 96%, 97%. You will still have some
I just saw this video that came in shower in the last 24 hours of one missile that was incoming and 12 interceptors were fired. Yeah, none of them intercept.
Can I add one point?
Yeah, okay, sir.
What he's saying is right. I'll just adding on to it. See what happens, you count the interceptors we have and the production of interceptors. Israel has multi-layered thing. If it was going for 10 days, there was no problem. But now it has stretched beyond that. And there was a war going on in Ukraine for the last 4 or 5 years. So what has happened, the interceptors are what? You have same THAAD interceptors. You have same Patriot interceptors, and that is there in Israel. You have Arrow 2, Arrow 3 interceptors. You have David Sling, your Iron Dome, and your Iron Beam. Now, Iron Beam cannot take on everything. With this whole thing, now they have to make a selection, which is the real target, which they have to take on, which is falling where. And in this, what we say the seep-through will be little more than what it was earlier. Now you're seeing visuals that they're able to hit cities and all that, they're coming a little more now.
Yeah.
The reason is, Israelis have to become selective about the what we call depth of magazine concept. You had a magazine, now you spent it out, now you need to worry about how to spend it. So that has come in the way, and that has come in the way in a very big way.
So does it show there is a depletion?
Depletion, of course. See, how many you think they make PAC-3 kind of missiles, interceptors, what we call, PAC-3, PAC-2, in a year? Just about 600 in a year. How many Tomahawks they make in a year? Just about 90.
How many of the Israelis and all of them, the entire Ukraine war, there were 600 interceptors of the Patriots. 600. And they've already fired 800 in this particular war.
Before we move out of this boots on ground, I'd like to add a point here. I call a term called anchor on ground. I don't call it a boot on ground. I feel the entire war is going to be a maritime engagement because he has to catch Iran somehow by jugular vein, whether it is by energy, Kharg, Larak, Kosha, islands, or whatever. Because the way that things are being mobilized, the visible and invisible preparations which are happening, which has happened in the last 4 years, if you come to know, AI integration, space integration, 6,000 mines which are around that to be removed, 100 unmanned crew vessels which have been prepared for this job, and 20 amphibious landing carried out by Iran to counter a threat which is imminent for them for last 3-4 years. It's going on there. And actually it was being prepared. The war is there on a different level. The world has not seen these kind of wars, Falkland, Incheon, Normandy. They were all different. 9,000 people were killed. But this is going to be a modified signature style of very short, swift, surprise, dilemma, and deception strike.
Where is the deception? Where is the surprise? Because I don't see any surprise.
You will find a lot of divergence happening, lot of
because,
flanks.
Gentlemen,
Surprise is what
I'm not, this is the first time when you're looking at a war that you don't.
I'll tell you, in his address,
Truth social is a surprise.
in his address, it was pointed out that
This is a question I wanted to ask both of you.
statement is a surprise.
What's the objective?
That's what he's
here?
doing. That's what he's
What's the objective? In the sense that, okay, if I want to send in men, or I want to send, boots on ground, but with what objective are you really wanting it? First, you were saying that I'm going to open up something that was already open. Now you are going to send in and say that, okay, we're going to open.
He's not going to open it.
Now I'm saying I don't want to
That
open
is the trap.
So
Do what is Niranjan, what
at
is
some
trying to
level,
do?
it's the most bizarre war that we are actually seeing.
No, but this is what is very, very surprising. But this is what it is. You know what he has done. He went on Iran, he annihilated it, and he made a ground, and now he says that please come.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you there. See, Iran is not yet annihilated, sir.
I know that. That's what I'm saying.
Sir, I just, in fact, we did a deep dive yesterday, and he mentioned a number. Iran can produce 10,000 drones in a month.
Yes.
Right? And we've seen their stockpile in the videos that they've received. Whatever it is. There's one more point, sir.
Yes.
Anywhere between 2,500 to 6,000 ballistic missiles. You will never get an exact number.
Yes.
But look at how much they fired. It's just a fraction of what we have seen. Assume that half of it is destroyed. We don't know. Even the Americans they say we've destroyed their capabilities. But I mean, look at Tel Aviv, sir. I mean, look at Tel Aviv and how Israel is getting hit.
Two statesmen. President says 3 weeks war, and his defense secretary says as long as it is required. Please understand, I'm again telling you, it could be continued for a very long time.
By all
logic,
we have this said is the new scapegoat. If the way you see the kind of conversations that have actually happened, President Trump is finding every time he looks at Pete Hegseth and says that, oh, Pete wants to do it. Pete wants to do it. It's like the scapegoat there.
Something about United States of American Armed Forces, which is very serious statement.
Right.
And I am now, after 36 days of war, the way they have conducted the operations, I see more of chest thumping and bravado and less of professionalism.
Where was the professionalism, sir? I mean, you look at...
That's a very important, that's a very...
One question I want to take to Ambassador Sachdev, Shravan, on this, the Bab al-Mandeb. After Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians threatening to block this strategic strait at Bab al-Mandeb. How much more escalation do you see happening, sir? Diplomatically speaking, if this war continues...
Is it like the wild card? Because effectively you're using the proxies. We expected that to come. But is it still the wild card? Because if that happens, as Niranjan was also pointing out, Ambassador, that you're basically, there are one more choke point that you're bringing into the war right now. That's going to be disastrous.
How much more worse is it going to get?
Good question. Bab al-Mandeb means door of tears in Arabic. And this could be the meaning that is coming out of it. 12% of global trade passes through Bab al-Mandeb. And this choke point is important because it connects Asia with Europe.
Yes.
North America, Atlantic seaboard with Asia on the other side.
Yeah.
Unlike Strait of Hormuz, it has a bypass. You can go around Cape of Good Hope and still make it, but it adds 14 days to the shipping. So that is one part. Second, the Trans-Arabian Pipeline, TAP, which Saudi Arabia has, can carry 7 million barrels a day at maximum, which is about a third of Strait of Hormuz traffic. But Trans-Arabian Pipeline opens at Yanbu in the Red Sea. If you have Bab el-Mandeb checkmated, then what happens to that 7 million barrels, which is, most of it is destined to Asia? It cannot come to Asia.
Yes.
Asia would be starved of crude. So those are the significant issues. Then again, Iran has shown as way back as 2019 when they attacked al-Buqaik in Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
which put half of Saudi oil production and capacity out of
Yes.
function. And Trump was expected to pound Tehran
Yes.
under the security for oil, remember?
Yes.
Which I mentioned earlier. But Trump did nothing. And that's where Saudis and Trump started falling apart till the Trump 2.0 started.
Yes.
Now here, I would also like to take you on the oil infrastructure being damaged. I think it's a generic term you shouldn't use. There's upstream and there's downstream.
Correct.
Downstream crude is needed by the world.
Yes.
If you burn up refineries or petrol pipelines
Yes.
in Iran,
Doesn't matter.
then it's Iranian consumer who suffer. But Iran can still use Kirk to export.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful in not talking about midstream, not talking about downstream, but upstream damage that being done. So let's watch this space
Yes.
as to where does the next shoe drops
Yes.
on Iran, whether it's downstream or it's upstream. Thank you.
What the master
Sir.
said, Bab el-Mandeb also a Djibouti base. Now the Djibouti base have half the Americans, have the Chinese, have the Japanese, have the French, whole lot of there. A base which is there for years on. So much that anybody would attempt to do that, nobody will allow that to happen.
Yeah.
The Egyptians are also going to lose if the Suez Canal gets blocked.
Yeah.
So that is something which the Houthis, much that they would want to, but it's not easy for one.
General, with due respect, Houthis were able to do it for 2 years.
And we must add it that Operation Atlanta, Operation Upsides, and Operation Prosperity Guardian, all three were conducted, one by United Union, NAVFOR, and then these three missions were carried out. India did not go into it. China was playing football in Bahrain those days. Freedom of navigation was left to America, and they were piggyback on it. But they did it, and again you will find these countries will come. The warships come with disaster management intent, but with the political will, overnight in the morning they have full ammunition and they change the role. And it happens. They go to territorial water and wait. I have been to many countries and waited for Ministry of External Affairs to clear me, but Navy has sent me before. And I did change the role in the morning. So it happens with maritime diplomacy. Today, America is completely on maritime diplomacy. That is how they are going to work. They will never engage anywhere. You know how Trump has been
Maritime diplomacy, or it will be gunboat diplomacy?
Same thing.
There is no diplomacy as per their definition.
Ambassador wants to come in. Yeah.
Why I do not call gun?
Allow me to say that it's been nearly 1 year since Houthis lifted the barricade.
Yes.
And yet, Maersk, the largest shipping company, is using Cape of Good Hope. They don't trust the capacity of all those fleets
and it takes
to protect their assets, which an LNG carrier can cost $500 million.
Yeah.
You want to risk it? Where is the war insurance?
Yeah.
So all that put together, it works on sentiments as much as on gunboats.
Yeah.
So and it's not an easy deal.
And Niranjan, let's not discount it. since it's a conversational thing, insurance companies will not insure the ULCCs. And that is where they are all in London. From there, they are not signing. Who will pass through? And Houthis, as he rightly said, had been successfully, effectively were able to block it. So idea is, the fear is the key. But coming to this, the Sumed
That's right.
pipeline, which is there, and Sukna to the other side, which takes the fuel, the moment you block that, your connection to the North, Europe and North America is 2 weeks longer.
Yes.
You pay the freight.
They also opened a
prices.
new line also they've opened at Kok, that Abu Dhabi to Oman coast, the UAE coast to direct to Oman. They were Yanbu line, east-west pipeline, which sir mentioned, this one. They don't have fixers there. They're trying to make more jetties and fixers so that tankers can take it. But this Oman thing, 400-kilometer line, Houthi can damage this east-west pipeline of Saudi Arabia.
So we have about 5 minutes left in the discussion, and we haven't come to our favorite part on Donald Trump.
Okay.
And Donald Trump, who never fails to entertain us. I think, where do we start, Shawan? I mean, losing the plot.
He said he's going to come out of NATO, I think, so let's start.
Yeah, let's start with that. Let's start with that, Ambassador. You want to go first? Or maybe I'll put this to General Kulkarni.
You know, very surprisingly, the
Ambassador,
Europeans
this
were a
question is
little
for
sort of, little worried there with the kind of statements that were being made, but typical to...
How do the heads of state, how do leaders take statements like that? When you say Macron, his wife slapped him, his jaw is still hurting, how do leaders react? Of course, we heard what Macron said.
Ambassador, have you seen this in the past, or this is also new to you?
Let's talk things that are better managed. Now, let me talk about the body language of Mr. Trump's speech 2 days ago. It has not been commented, so I have a proprietary right on it.
Okay.
If you noticed, and you can go back to the video, Trump didn't raise his hands to talk like that even once.
No.
He read it from the script.
Yes, he did.
From teleprompter.
Yeah.
Which is again very unusual.
Yes.
And his sort of one-liners, spoken with one shoulder down and head tilted, the way the guy got his ear pierced by a gunshot, the same way, was not there.
Yeah.
There was no tilt of the shoulder.
Yeah.
Arrogant sort of smirk.
Yeah.
Wasn't there.
Correct.
And the one-liner of Salim Javed type.
Yes.
The line वहीं से शुरू होती है जहाँ मैं खड़ा हूँ.
Yes.
Were not there in this.
No, they weren't there. They weren't there.
So that body language spoke to me louder than the 20-minute speech. Now forget about Macron and his wife being lampooned and all that. Those are part of manifested frustrations. Starmer, Britain being the best ally of United States for 200 years, again being lampooned, and both controlling their rage to hit back by just saying it's not our war.
Yeah.
NATO being jettisoned, thrown under the bus. These are all frustrations.
Yes.
That I cite as evidence of Mr. Trump coming to end of his wit.
Yeah.
Now, 2 other things, and I'm done. One, according to my understanding of US Constitution, President can wage a war, but only Congress can declare a war.
Yes.
And this has to be done within 60 days of hostilities. 60 days are over on 28th of this month. And while Republicans have slight majority in both houses, too many Republican
Are unhappy.
congressmen are unhappy, worried that they would lose November election, given 2/3 unpopularity.
Yes.
So that's one part. Losing November elections, majority in both houses, would open the door for Epstein files
Yes.
being scrutinized and impeachment being sort of waived.
Yeah, but it seems like the realistic, outcome as of now, Shravan, isn't it?
He has been impeached twice.
Yeah.
Unsuccessfully.
There are murmurs once again for it.
Yeah.
There are murmurs also once again.
73, had it not been for Richard Nixon impeached, coming to the rescue of Israel, Israel would have almost lost the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah.
Right? Today, you see the kind of resilience, the preparation of Iran over the last 36 days is indicative that Israel felt that existential threat was there. And as a result, if the Americans hadn't helped the Israelis at this point of time, Israel would have been in trouble. So you look at it that despite, again, impeachment, Richard Nixon, impeachment waiting for President.
Okay, let me get a final round. If quickly, in 20 to 30 seconds max, if you can, each one of you tell us, gentlemen, your prediction of where this war is going. 20 seconds.
So let's say, since time is very less, let me say this war will stay here for some more time. And as Ambassador says that 28th April, but he has gone to Congress, and Congress has not deauthorized him. That has happened. And as we are quoting, even Lyndon Johnson, when he went to Vietnam, George Bush, when he went to Iraq and Afghanistan, they always took what they call AUMF, authorization to use military forces. He is not taken. Now he doesn't know how to off-ramp. His body language was very well done by you, Ambassador, very well done by you. That's right. That's what we noted, but we never expressed it. You articulated very well. Yeah. And with that body language, but the dilemma. Yeah. The dilemma will force him to continue because Iran is not going to surrender. Iran is not going to surrender.
Yeah. Captain.
My view is very clear. This war is going to only finish when there is a total control and functionality of Strait of Hormuz gets out of hand of Iran once for all. And for that, a lot of preparations are going on. When we talk about softening of beach, here the beach is entire Iran. That is why this long time. That's why this lot of destruction and a lot of annihilation. We'll have to wait for it. And his defense secretary had said so. There was no declaration from Mr. Trump about what kind of action will happen. He kept quiet about marine deployment, special forces deployment. He did not say anything. He was very calibrated and deliberated in his speech, very, very careful, and he knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, okay. Chal.
It's a do or die situation from America. Americans have to do it. If they don't do it, they will suffer humiliation. And that humiliation, Americans cannot take it now. And therefore, the Iranians have shown their resilience and the ability to withstand that. Softening of the target will continue. The war may last another month or so because ultimately the oil will have to go into the custody. Possession will remain with Iran, but control will go to the United States. If that doesn't happen, America will not give it.
Sir.
My projection is that it'll end up being a war of attrition. Sporadically sort of bubbling away, with Israelis playing their own game. Secondly, I think while Iran might have won by staying, the sanctions have continued. And I see eventual negotiations between United States and Iran with progressive loosening of Strait of Hormuz stranglehold in return for sanctions being lifted. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic then. Going to be an easy month ahead, Shravan.
No doubt about it. But just one quick point I wanted to make also, because many of our viewers who would be watching must be wondering that, it's a war that's happening, lives have been lost, and we've been, perhaps, all smiles. The reality is this, Niranjan, it's because of the fact that never before have we seen, we've covered various other conflicts, never before have we seen that, is there any head or tail to what we are really looking at right now? unable to really fathom that where it started, why it started, and how is it really ending, and what will be achieved in the war. That becomes the crucial aspect. Well, you pointed out there's going to be a newsy month for us also, because it's unlikely that it's ending up soon.
We've lost track, Shravan. I mean, as a journalist in a newsroom, I can tell you where it started versus how it's going. We don't know what the objectives are, and nobody. I mean, look at the lines outside, petrol pumps. Look at companies not having enough LPG to function. People are out of jobs, and it's affecting all of us.
Right.
And it's sad. I mean, we are sitting here in a studio, but there are millions of people not knowing what next.
Right.
And that is why it's a serious situation, and that is why we're doing this conversation, so that you get an idea of where and how this war is going. Thank you for joining us on this special broadcast.